If you've lost a husband or a wife, I know there's a good chance you didn't click on this video looking for a financial lesson. You clicked on it because somewhere in the middle of everything else you're dealing with right now, there's a Social Security decision waiting for you, and you want to make sure you get it right. I want to start by saying that plainly because this topic deserves a calm, clear explanation, not a dramatic one. Here's what I want you to know before we go any further. If you are 60 or older and your spouse has passed away, there is a benefit available to you that most people misunderstand in a very specific way. And getting the order of your decisions right can mean a meaningfully larger income for the rest of your life. Nobody at the Social Security office is trying to mislead you. This rule is just genuinely confusing, and it's rarely explained in full unless you know to ask the right question. So today I'm going to explain it in full. If you're not subscribed yet, take a moment and do that now and turn on the bell. This channel exists to walk through exactly these kinds of decisions, clearly and without rushing you. Subscribe and let's get into it. Let's start with the single most common misunderstanding, because clearing this up changes everything else. Many people assume that a survivor benefit, the benefit you receive after a spouse passes away, works the same way as a spousal benefit, the benefit available to a living spouse. It does not. A spousal benefit caps out at 50% of your spouse's benefit amount. A survivor benefit is entirely different. It can be worth up to 100% of what your spouse was receiving or would have received at the time they passed away. That's not a small distinction. On a benefit of $2,000 a month, the difference between 50% and 100% is literally $1,000 every single month for the rest of your life. This confusion is understandable, honestly. The two terms sound almost identical, spousal benefit and survivor benefit, and most people have never had a reason to learn the difference until they suddenly need to know it. If you've spent any time researching this on your own and come away thinking you're only entitled to half of what your spouse received, I want you to set that number aside completely. It's the wrong starting point for this conversation. Now let's talk about when you're allowed to claim this. Survivor benefits have their own separate set of age rules, different from every other Social Security benefit. You can begin receiving survivor benefits as early as age 60. That's 2 full years earlier than you're allowed to claim your own retirement benefit, which starts at 62 at the earliest. If you have a qualifying disability, you may be able to start as early as age 50. And if you are caring for the deceased child who is under 16 or a child of any age who is disabled, you may qualify to receive survivor benefits regardless of your own age. Here's the part that requires a little patience, but it matters, so stay with me. The amount you receive depends heavily on exactly when you choose to start. If you claim survivor benefits at exactly age 60, you'll receive approximately 71.5% of your spouse's full benefit amount. That percentage rises gradually the longer you wait. If you wait until what's called your survivor full retirement age, which is 66 or 67 depending on the year you were born, you receive the full 100%. There is no advantage to waiting beyond your survivor full retirement age. The maximum is the maximum, and it's reached at that point, not later. I also want to mention something for anyone watching this who was divorced rather than widowed from a previous marriage and whose former spouse has since passed away. You may still qualify for a survivor benefit on that former spouse's record, even though you're no longer married to them, as long as that marriage lasted at least 10 years. If you've since remarried, the same age 60 rule applies. Remarrying before 60 generally ends this eligibility, while remarrying at 60 or later generally does not. And importantly, this benefit doesn't reduce what a current widow or widower of that same person receives. Multiple eligible survivors, including former spouses, can each receive their own full survivor benefit without taking away from anyone else's. I want to address something else that surprises a lot of people. The amount you're eligible for isn't just based on your spouse's lifetime earnings in the abstract. It's based on what your spouse was actually receiving or would have been receiving based on choices they made. If your spouse claimed their own retirement benefit early, say at 62, taking the reduction that comes with that, your survivor benefit inherits that same reduction as its starting point. On the other hand, if your spouse waited past their own full retirement age and earned what are called delayed retirement credits, those higher credits carry over to your survivor benefit too. In plain terms, decisions your spouse made years ago about their own claiming age are still affecting your number today. Now I want to walk you through the part of this video that I think matters most, the part that almost nobody explains clearly, even though it can be worth tens of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. For most Social Security benefits, there's a rule called deemed filing. In simple terms, deemed filing means that when you apply for one benefit you're eligible for, the system automatically considers you to have applied for any other benefit you might qualify for at the same time and pays you the higher of the two. You don't get to pick one and save the other for later. This rule exists mainly to prevent a different kind of strategy where someone might claim a smaller spousal benefit early just to collect extra income while letting their own retirement benefit grow untouched in the background. Congress closed that door for retirement and spousal benefits years ago, but survivor benefits were left out of that change. Deemed filing does not apply to survivor benefits. That means you can genuinely choose to claim one benefit now while letting the other one grow in the background and switch to it later. Let me show you what that actually looks like with a simple, rounded example, just to make the math concrete. Let's say your own retirement benefit, if you claimed it at your full retirement age, would be $2,200 a month. And let's say your survivor benefit, based on your spouse's record, would be $1,800 a month at your full retirement age. Here's the strategy this opens up. You could claim the survivor benefit first, at age 60, accepting the reduced amount, somewhere around $1,290 a month, to give yourself income through your 60s. Then, at age 70, you switch over to your own retirement benefit, which has been quietly growing the entire time thanks to delayed retirement credits, now worth around $2,900 a month. You received income the whole way through, and you ended up with a permanently higher benefit for the rest of your life than either option would have given you on its own. Notice what made that work. Your own retirement benefit was the larger of the two once it had a chance to fully grow, but your survivor benefit was available 2 full years earlier and at a meaningfully higher starting percentage than your own retirement benefit would have been at that same age. By using the smaller, earlier benefit as a bridge, you let the larger one mature untouched. Over a 20 or 25-year retirement, that kind of sequencing decision can add up to well over $100,000 in total lifetime income, compared to simply claiming whichever benefit seemed larger on the day you first asked about it. This works in the other direction too, depending on which of your two benefits is larger. Some people are better off claiming their own retirement benefit first in a reduced form, while letting the survivor benefit grow toward its own maximum, then switching to the survivor benefit later. The right order depends entirely on your specific numbers, which one is larger, and how each one grows over time. This is exactly why getting an estimate of both benefits, side by side before you file anything, is so important. Filing for the wrong one first, or filing for both without understanding this distinction can permanently cost you money you were otherwise entitled to. I want to pause here and say something directly. When you call the Social Security Administration, the representative you speak with will almost always give you accurate numbers. What often doesn't happen automatically is a clear explanation that you have this choice at all, using a method sometimes called a restricted application. If you don't specifically ask about claiming one benefit while delaying the other, the conversation may simply end with you being told your options as if you have to pick once and be done with it. You don't. Ask directly. Let me answer one more question I know is on a lot of people's minds. What if your spouse passed away before they ever started collecting their own Social Security benefit at all? Maybe they died at 58 or 61, long before they got around to filing. Does that mean there's nothing to inherit? Not at all. In that situation, Social Security generally calculates your survivor benefit using what your spouse would have received at their own full retirement age as the unreduced base amount. You wouldn't inherit a penalty just because your spouse passed away before filing anything. That base amount is then still subject to the same age-based percentage I described earlier, depending on when you choose to start receiving it yourself. Let's cover a few more practical questions I know are on your mind. What about remarriage? If you remarry before turning 60, you will generally lose eligibility for survivor benefits on your late spouse's record while that new marriage continues. But if you remarry at age 60 or later, it generally does not affect your eligibility at all. You can remarry and still receive survivor benefits based on your previous spouse's record. This surprises a lot of people who assume remarriage always closes that door. It doesn't, once you're past 60. What about how long you were married? In most cases, your marriage needs to have lasted at least 9 months before your spouse's death for you to qualify. There are exceptions to this, including accidental death and certain situations involving military service. So if your situation feels unusual, it's worth asking specifically, rather than assuming you don't qualify. There's also a small one-time payment worth knowing about, sometimes overlooked entirely. Social Security offers a one-time lump sum payment of $255 to an eligible surviving spouse. It's not a large amount, but it has a strict 2-year deadline from the date of death to claim it, and after that window closes, it's gone. If this is recent for you, it's worth asking about specifically when you contact Social Security, since it's easy for this small payment to get overlooked in the middle of a much bigger conversation. And one more practical note. If you're still working and you claim survivor benefits before your own survivor full retirement age, an earnings limit applies, similar to the rules for regular retirement benefits. Earning above that limit can temporarily reduce what you receive. It's not a reason to avoid claiming, but it is a reason to ask exactly how it applies to your specific income before you file. So here's what I want you to actually do with all of this. First, get an estimate of both numbers, your own retirement benefit and your survivor benefit, before you file for anything. You can find your own retirement estimate through your My Social Security account at ssa.gov. Your survivor benefit estimate typically requires speaking directly with Social Security, since this isn't always available through the online system the same way. Write both numbers down side by side, along with the age you'd need to be to receive the full amount of each one. Second, unlike most other Social Security applications, survivor benefits generally cannot be filed online. You'll need to call the Social Security Administration directly at 1-800-772-1213 or visit your local field office in person. Have your spouse's Social Security number, your marriage certificate, and the death certificate ready when you call. If you were divorced from a former spouse who has since passed away, you'll also want your final divorce decree showing the length of the marriage. Having these documents in hand before you call will make the conversation faster and reduce the chance of having to call back a second time. Third, when you speak with a representative, ask this specific question. Say, can I file a restricted application to claim one benefit now and switch to the other one later? Asking it using those words signals exactly what you're trying to understand, and it opens the door to a conversation that doesn't always happen automatically. If the first representative you speak with seems unfamiliar with this option, it's reasonable to ask to speak with someone who specializes in survivor claims, or to call back and ask again. This is a real valid strategy, even if it doesn't come up in every conversation by default. Fourth, if your spouse passed away recently, also ask about the one-time $255 lump sum payment and make a note of the 2-year deadline so it doesn't quietly expire while you're focused on everything else. Fifth, if you're still working, mention that clearly on the call and ask exactly how the earnings limit applies to your specific income before your survivor full retirement age. This won't disqualify you from anything, but it can affect the timing of what you actually receive month to month, and it's better to know that going in than to be surprised by it later. I want to close with something simple. None of this is about squeezing every last dollar out of a painful situation. It's about making sure that a decision made out of confusion or made too quickly during an already difficult time doesn't end up costing you real income for years to come. You're entitled to this benefit because of a lifetime your spouse spent contributing to this system. Taking the time to understand it fully is not too much to ask, and you deserve a clear answer, not just a fast one. If you know someone who has lost a spouse and is 60 or older, consider sending them this video gently whenever feels like the right moment. It might help them ask one extra question the next time they're on the phone with Social Security, and that one question could be worth a great deal over time. That's what this channel is here for. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.